and welcome back to the All Out Brits podcast, the podcast that brings you everything you would expect from an NFL podcast, but from across the seas here in cold, snowy, wet, miserable England at the moment. But this week, it was week 11 in the NFL, and as always, it did not disappoint. This week, we saw Kelsey and Mahomes get robbed, not once, but twice, as the Bills finally steal the unbeaten record away from the Kansas City Chiefs, which we've been praying and hoping for a very, very long time. We also saw the same amount of GMs fired this week as we saw metal sheets falling from the roofs in Dallas. Talk about Tim Potts, say the very, very least. And as always, the king of the Tim Potts is the main man to my right, Mr. Elliot Greenwood. How are you, my good friend?
I'm doing all right, mate. I'm not crumbling like AT&T's at the moment. Two pieces of metal actually, Taz. I don't know if you saw. Obviously, one did fall down. The other piece of metal had to be like bolted, like back on before the start of the game. Talk about shit. All right, going on in AT&T. But across the rest of the league, fantastic fixtures. And the three games that we are going to talk about, mate, was three quarterback matchups for the ages. Really, 6 quarterbacks on show, showing off the talent, showing off their arms. What a week it's been, mate. I'm very, very much excited to talk about it.
And I think we should just head straight on and into the game which everybody watched. The game where we saw Kansas become Bills City. Now, we said it last week. I'm pretty happy with our prediction last week. I think we had a pretty good grasp on this game. But we said, me in particular, said that if you can get Josh Allen's legs pumping and running, they will win this game. And his run touchdown at the end of the game seals the game. But I think there was a lot more to that Bills win, wasn't there, Mr. Greenwood?
I think there was, mate. And obviously, you touched on there that Josh Allen was fantastic with his legs. Obviously, over 50 rushing yards for him on the ground. Extending plays, which is what you want.
Yeah.
But also a lot of quarterback design runs on 4th and 2 to give the ball to Josh Allen. That's what you want. You want him to excel in those situations. But on the flip side of that defense, for kind of the first time this season, or the first time in recent history, stood up against Patrick Mahomes, and they got the ball back to Josh Allen on 2 different occasions, turning over 15. Isn't the easiest thing to do in recent seasons. Not been too hard this season, but what else they did was they restricted who Mahomes could throw the ball to.
Yeah.
When you look at that Chiefs team and you look at the talents that they've got on offense, you're looking at DeAndre Hopkins and you're also looking at Travis Kelce. Between those two players, they had 5 catches for just 37 yards. So they made those lesser-known players, those players that aren't as explosive, those players that can't get the run after the catch, that can't get the separation, they made them have to make plays.
Yeah.
And that's where the Chiefs really, really struggled. But obviously the Bills, when you talk about the Bills, you cannot smile when you think about Josh Allen. The way he plays the game, the way that he just had his heart on his sleeves, every game is a cup final for him. Every play is a do or die moment. And he's just such an exciting and fun quarterback to watch. What did you reckon of him that game, mate? And what did you reckon of Patrick Mahomes as well?
I think it was, like you said, an unbelievable game by both of them, really. I think we want to see quarterbacks carry games forward, but we saw one man carry his team much further than the other. But Josh Allen, like you said, he's a special, special talent. He's been doing it for years now, but he hasn't been able to do it against his adversary in Mahomes. I think what was most beautiful about that game is we saw Allen deliver to people that he's delivered to much this season, but not previously. We saw Shakir get involved, Keon Coleman, Kincaid, Knox, all these players that you wouldn't associate as being elite players in this league. But in this Bills offense, in this Bills team, when Josh Allen has got the ball in his hands, they look absolutely unbelievable. And that's what wins you games. Players performing at the highest level and performing so well. I think a big shout out goes to Bills D, though. I mean, I think everyone was talking about the fact that they ran man for pretty much most of the game, which they very rarely do. But do you think that has set up a bit of a game plan against Mahomes if you match up 1v1, which can be very difficult with some of that receiving core, as we know? But it really required him to then force the ball into positions that he really didn't want to. You then sort of swarm the pocket, meaning he can't break out and extend these plays. And it seems like he just didn't know what to do. I think Andy Reid didn't know what to do. And I don't think we've ever seen a Chiefs team look so stagnant and lost and confused when very normally they always find a way out of situations.
I think kind of this season we have seen kind of Patrick Mahomes and that offense not be as productive and not
Yeah,
put up as many points. I think it's because teams are starting to work out that Andy Reid offense.
yeah.
And that's easy to say. That's really easy to say.
Mhm.
And it's very hypocritical for us to say as well, because they've only lost one game of football all season. So everyone was singing the praises for the last 8 weeks,
Yeah.
or for the last 10 weeks of the season, and no one's really been coming for them.
Mhm.
All right. We've been calling them out for a while. This is
Just a
one thing I
tad,
will say. We have been calling them out for a while. I can see this team, I can see Mahomes in particular, having a little bit of a downward spiral now.
Mhm.
Okay. It wouldn't surprise me if they lost back-to-back weeks now. All right. And do you know who they're playing next week, mate? Another massive quarterback. Another quarterback for the ages. Another quarterback who's got a lot to prove. They're playing Bryce Young. I can see him taking the W away from Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, the Carolina Panthers, they're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs next week
Wow.
and embarrass Andy Reid. I can see it. You're laughing, you're shaking your head, but you know it's true. You know you want to see it. The Carolina Panthers are impressive.
They are. It'd be a good
But
story.
no one ever. But they are going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And I can see this being a little bit of a downward spiral. Kind of what we saw with the Eagles last season. Obviously,
Mhm.
going so long undefeated, at some point, something just gives. And I think they've given a bit too much away this week.
100%. And I think it's very difficult in this league to stay at these levels. I think, especially this season, where it seems that everybody can beat anybody, even though it may not seem like that with some of the records, but everyone looks like they can have their day. And I 100% think that the Chiefs could be having everyone else's day aside from themselves at this point. I think what's most shocking for me this year is how little the big playmakers have got involved. I mean, Travis Kelce, apart from the last 2 weeks, hadn't really done much this season. Um, whether that's because they know that they're going to get matched up so much better, with people knowing how well and good they are. DeAndre Hopkins has kind of struggled since he came in, apart from his big game in his first outing. But then you've got people like Noah Gray, who had an unbelievable game. Kareem Hunt wasn't as effective as he has been in the last few weeks, but that Kansas City team is getting Isaiah Pacheco back most likely in the next few weeks. As much as we're saying they're going to have a downturn, we pretty much know that they're going to be in the playoffs. Do we think that we have a little bit of a formula now on how to beat the Chiefs in one game without overtime? Do you think this is it?
I don't think it is, mate.
Okay.
I think for me, the way that you beat the Chiefs is you have to be bold on offense,
Mhm.
because you know that Patrick Mahomes, no matter what, he's still going to do Patrick Mahomes things.
Yeah.
In the fourth quarter, that's where he really gets his money. Because
Mhm.
in the first 3 quarters of that game, he didn't really show much. But in that last quarter, he put a few nice drives together and he got his
Mhm.
team obviously into the end zone. Um, but one thing I will say is that I will massively praise kind of the head coach of the Bills
Mhm.
for just going for it in those situations where you could take 3 points, but it's not going to make a difference. When
Yeah.
Mahomes has the ball in his hands, you know he's going to go and down the field and score points. So you have to take points when you get them, and you have to be bold on the offense. If you're on the Kansas City 30-yard line and you've got 2 yards to go for it, because you're not going to get another chance. You might not get a better chance all season to beat Patrick Mahomes. So I just think that's what you have to do going forward. You have to be bold. You have to make those big plays. You cannot rely on your defense, regardless of who you are. You have to be faithful, and you have to have faith in your offense and your weapons.
Now, a team that you mentioned who, instead of taking the 6 points, took the three is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who somehow managed to come away with a win against divisional rivals, the Baltimore Ravens. It was Chris Boswell's legacy game, which I'm very, very happy about with a fancy role that he plays in my life. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, with Russell Wilson quarterbacking, somehow come away with a game against the Baltimore Ravens. What on earth happened there for a Baltimore team that have been so, so good this year?
They have been good, but at the same time, the Steelers have been sneaky good as well. Obviously, you mentioned yourself kind of last few weeks.
Mhm.
A good defense against Lamar Jackson is a
Yeah.
fantastic matchup because it usually shuts him down.
Mhm.
Now, this is the first time this season that Lamar Jackson has been held to under 20 points in a game.
Yeah.
Okay, only scoring 16 points. And it is a fantastic defense that the Steelers have
Mhm.
got. Obviously, you've got Watt on the edge coming off, and a fantastically well worked and well run secondary with some fantastic linebackers as well. But they just kept that offense quiet. The Steelers
Mhm.
were fantastic. But one thing about the Ravens, and this is why I don't think they're a championship team at the moment, and this is why I don't think they can go all the way and go to the Super Bowl. They're the most penalised team in the NFL.
Yeah.
They've had the most flags thrown on them all season, and
Mhm.
they've given up the most yards because of the fouls that they've been giving up. And in this game, as well. It was no change there.
Yeah.
80 yards 12 times they were flagged. That is not good enough. That is not good enough for a championship team. They have to be cleaner. You have to tidy up those mistakes. And mistakes is what really, really cost them. Because if you're a team and if your defense is only giving up 3 points, they're just bending and not breaking,
Yeah.
the offense has to do more. And especially when you're paying someone like Lamar Jackson, especially when you've got Derrick Henry in your backfield, and especially when Zay Flowers can get open the majority of the time, you have to find a way to get the ball to those receivers.
You really do. And I think the most surprising part is you wouldn't associate a Harbaugh team with being undisciplined and giving away penalties like that. No way on earth. I don't know what it was. But every time it switched over onto the game on red zone, they were just scrapping. Well, play the game. And I think the Steelers are pretty happy with that. They knew that they had a Ravens team that were just so disjointed. And it kills games, all these penalties, having to deal with and sit there and wait until the referees are faffed about and finished off who's done what. It really does kill teams, kills the momentum, kills the mood. And I think, like you said, that probably is what defeated the Ravens in the end. And another thing that maybe defeated them, Russell Wilson. I think I'm going to have to, play the audio because this man, he's got something. He really does.
His name's Mr. Unlimited. Yeah, you got to be unlimited.
And I think he's got some unlimited black magic because in that game we saw Justin Tucker miss field goals, which probably would have won the game. Justin Tucker, one of the greatest kickers in the NFL, missing field goals. It's not the first time this season. It's happened quite a bit. We also saw Derrick Henry, first fumble in 3 years.
Joe,
what is going on?
One thing I will say about the kicker situation, mate, I've seen a lot of videos about this, and I have done my research as well.
Oh,
all right?
Go ahead.
You have noticed, okay, he has missed a lot more field goals this season, and he has missed an extra point as well. Did you know that every single kick that he's missed has been wide left? Okay, wide left. And when you look at why this has been happening, you have to look at kind of the pieces that are involved in kicking a field goal. You've got your long snapper, you've got your holder, then you've got your kicker. The kicker stayed the same, okay? We know Justin Tucker's fantastic. The long snapper and also the placeholder, they're both new this season. They're both new to kind of this system. And if you look at where the place kicker's kind of putting the ball down, he's putting it not in the same position as where Tucker's lining up from. Although he should still be adjusting and kicking these points, it kind of shows that maybe not all of these misses are down to down to Tucker and down to his mistakes. Maybe it's due to where the ball's being placed and he can't make that adjustment quick enough because that ball comes through very, very quickly and you start and you run up before the ball's been placed. So if someone's changing where the ball is going down, likelihood is that you are going to go wide left, which is very, very common for a right foot kicker. That is ball knowledge. That is incredible.
Thank you for that beautiful analysis. That was really special. I'm impressed, mate. But for the sake of entertainment purposes, let's entertain the fact that Russell Wilson's put some dirty little juju on the Ravens this week. I mean, I was baffled. I mean, don't get me wrong, Russell Wilson had an okay game. He wasn't the greatest, say the very least.
Fields as well coming in the important moments
and then decides to slide when he probably could have won the game, which was really interesting. But overall, I mean, this Steelers team, like we said, has been sneaky good. Same with a lot of teams this season, which another team which we'll talk about next, the Chargers, another team which have gone under the radar, even though, they haven't really got everything, in comparison to what the Steelers have when you're thinking of Najee Harris and George Pickens. But what is it about this Steelers team? Is it the coaching staff? Is it the personnel? Why are they playing so good? And why is their defense so good as well?
Mate, it's Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin doesn't know what losing is. He's never had a losing record in the NFL. He's never been under 500. Okay, and he ain't going to start this season. Russell Wilson is a very, very competent quarterback. He wasn't put in a situation in Denver where he was allowed to thrive. Now, obviously, that's kind of sounding a little bit odd, especially when you got a rookie doing so well over there in Denver at the moment. And they another team, the Broncos, another team that's sneaky good as well. But all these teams that are sneaky good have elite defenses, absolutely elite defenses. When you've got TJ Watt coming off the edge and causing the havoc that he's causing, mate, what else are you supposed to do? It's like when Dallas have got Micah playing. It's like when New York have got Sexy Dexy playing at defensive tackle. As well, last season, Nick Bosa for the Niners. When you have these players on defense who can be so disruptive, they just turn a game over like that. They turn a game around so quickly, and they just disrupt so much. And I don't think you can plan for that. I don't think you can. every play you have to know, right, where's what? Where's Parsons? Where's Dexter Lawrence? Where's Bosa? You have to allocate these players and you have to get your blocking schemes right, because if you don't, they are just disrupting plays all the time.
Yeah. And I think that is pretty much how to describe it. Disruptive. I think they threw the Ravens out of joint. They threw everything that Harbaugh's worked so hard to create this season. And ultimately, they go number 1 in the division as well. For Baltimore, just a defining point. Do you think that this is a larger epidemic? Do you think this is just a one-off thing? Do you think that there's issues that they need to address at the heart of that offense?
I think for me, the main issues is starting to be John.
Jim.
Is it
John,
Jim? Which one is it? This is not a Harbaugh team
That's
at the
why we
moment.
say Harbaugh, you novice.
This is, I think it's John. This is not a John Harbaugh team at the moment. Okay. And the reason for that is those penalties. You have to be clean. You have to be kind of more, you have to be more organised, and you have to be more disciplined. If they can sort that out, then there's the potential for them to kind of keep going. But at the moment, sat not at the top of the division, looking like they're going to get a wild card spot. I don't see them winning very confidently away from home. They are so much more confident, at M&T Bank Stadium. They are so much more confident at home than they are when they're playing away. And if they have to go 4 playoff games away from home, they ain't getting into that Super Bowl. They ain't winning that ball game, mate. And like I say, this just isn't a championship team.
No, and I think they haven't been a championship team for a long time. They've always been there or thereabouts. And a team which are looking like they could be a championship team, maybe not this year, but probably next year, with a new coach at the helm and a quarterback who we've known to be so good, is Mr. Justin Herbert. And what did he do? He charged through the Cincinnati Bengals against probably the best looking quarterback in the NFL, behind Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously. But Justin Herbert, I'm going to say, I love watching the Chargers this season. I don't know what it is about them, but when you've got players that you don't know their bloody names of, and you have to Google where they're from and who they are, and they're putting up numbers and they're putting up plays, and you've got rejects and you've got regens, it's unbelievable. We obviously saw in college with the Wolverines last season, how well they played and how dominant they were. I can't believe that we're seeing it so early and so soon into the Harbaugh reign in Los Angeles. How good has this Chargers team been this season?
Mate, again, sneaky good. Quite sneaky good. Obviously, Herbert is unbelievable. I've been singing his praises for years, mate, and I have. Last season, I was saying how special he is. He will not go his NFL career without winning a Super Bowl. Let me tell you that. He has got a ring in him, because he is a very, very special quarterback. His arm talent is probably second to none in the NFL, okay? He's precision, his deep ball is elite. He's everything that you want to start kind of your organization. He would be one of the kind of the top. If you were to get rid of all the teams now and redraft every single player, he is up there for me as one of the best quarterbacks in this league, and he's one of those players that you'd want to kind of be the front runner for your team. He's such a unique quarterback. As well, Lad McConkey. Finally, now he's got a receiver. Bit of a weird one. He don't look like he should be a wide receiver.
No.
He looks like he should be serving you. He looks more like a sandwich artist, doesn't he? Looks like he should be serving you fast food, maybe at Taco Bell, giving you little chili beans or whatever. Not absolutely torching NFL defenses. And Quentin Johnson as well. He started to look a bit more decent than he did last season, obviously coming into his second year. But I just think in this game, going toe-to-toe with Joe Burrow and leading him for so much of the game, he just looked really, really good. And obviously you touched on the Michigan Wolverines there as well. The Wolverines last season, they rushed the ball a lot. They didn't give the ball to JJ McCarthy a lot. They didn't let him throw over the middle of the field, really. And now Harbaugh's now got a quarterback that can do that. He's just showing. He's literally just showing how much of a good coach he is. My coach of the year, as I called at the start of the season, potentially looking like he might be as well. But I just think Justin Herbert is so special. So special. J.K. Dobbins, obviously, at the end as well, getting a touchdown with just 14 seconds left. What did you rate that game, mate? And what did you think of the quarterback on the other side of the ball in Joe Burrow?
Of course. I mean, the thing that's most impressed me about Herbert this year is how much he's used his legs. I think we associate, as you said, Herbert as a pocket passer and his elite arm talent, but he's been so smart with how he's extended plays. And I think it adds another dimension, especially in this league when you've got so many dual threat quarterbacks, to be one of those and to evolve into one of those. Well, we saw last year how many sacks he was taking and how many injuries he was getting out of a result of that. getting out of the pocket, making it a 2, 3, 4 yard gain as opposed to a 10-yard loss. That is what Harbaugh has brought to Justin Herbert's game, and it's been so effective. I think he had over 50 yards in this game, and a lot of those were scrambles, a lot of those were design runs as well. And adding that to a team that are already firing and adding that to a quarterback that's already elite is just absolutely unbelievable. On the flip side of that, Mr. Joe Burrow, this brother, someone needs to take him out for a cup of tea because he is going through it. I actually can't believe what they're doing to my boy. Joey Burrow does not deserve this.
He's such a special talent as well. We're wasting him.
I mean, 50 attempts. 50 attempts. Like putting the ball in this man's hand, and he's delivering. He is delivering. He might have made just over half, but he is delivering. And somehow, some way, the vibe it gives me Gerrard looking over at Roy Hodgson before he took that penalty. That's that defense every time is like, you know what? Evan McPherson every time is like, you know what? Get rid of him. You took 250. Piss off. I want my money as well. I don't know if that is what's going to cause a bit of trouble for this Bengals team going forth. T. Higgins has been unbelievable when he's been fit this year. Jamar Chase been unbelievable. But when you've paid a lot of money to your quarterback and you've still got to pay other players in this team and then wonder why the unit is not as successful as it should be, well, unfortunately, there's a few finger pointing. Because as good as Joe Burrow is, that Bengals team seems to be struggling with the personnel and the depth of it as well.
Yeah, a little bit. There have been, but I think even if you look at the quarterback contracts that have been coming out recently, you're looking at obviously Patrick Mahomes is on a lot of money. His defense is pulling through for him. His defense has pulled him out of a lot of holes this season. Joe Burrow deserves a defense. He deserves a championship defense because he's a championship quarterback. That offense is a Super Bowl team. Okay, that defense is one of the worst defenses in the league.
Yeah.
You cannot lean on your defense at all. You cannot rely on that defense to get the job done at all. One thing I would say, though, is that they were trailing for the majority of that game. They were down 20 points at one point. So Joe Burrow, in the early stages of the game, he has to find a way to make the offense click a little bit better. And then maybe he doesn't have to pass the ball 50 times. But they also had 10 more minutes of possession over the Chargers. They dominated the ball. They had more yards. A better efficiency on third down. The defense, mate, is just absolutely apple crumbling to pieces, and there's no, and I don't know why. I really don't know why. In the secondary as well, they don't have much. I think they had Chibide Awuzie was one of the best corners. He was a Dallas Cowboy reject, mate. All right, that does not look good for your defense. They need to find a way to sort it out, and I think it's obviously the season's over now. They ain't making the playoffs. Season's done. The one thing is, though, you know that kind of Burrow can play you out of a decent draft pick. Yeah. So how many games do you want to win now? How much do you want to go all in? And how much do you want to go, do you know what? That's you did, Sanders in the draft. If we really tank and maybe go get the 10th pick, can we then trade up and try and potentially get him higher in the draft? Because, mate, that defense needs help.
Yeah, it really, really does. I think the interesting thing, you mentioned expensive quarterbacks there, but this season, the quarterbacks that have been paid a lot of money, the franchises seem to be struggling a little bit. If we look at, the Jags franchise with Lawrence struggling, I think the Packers, again, Love has played out of his skin. But again, they've been relying on sort of players that, again, you wouldn't associate with the Packers team or with the core, of the Packers. Same with the Cowboys have struggled. And another one is Daniel Jones in New York as well. What does this say about teams, their expenditures, and sharing it all around? Because it's all good having someone that can throw the ball, but you also need someone who can catch it. And we've seen elite pass catchers who can still drop the ball, but making sure that you have people that can catch it is probably just as important, isn't it?
It is, but it's not an issue if you draft him right. Okay, it's not an issue if you draft him well. It's coming to you, though, bro. It is coming to San Francisco. You know that your championship window is closing. Brock Purdy is going to get a lot of money when he finally gets paid, mate, because he's been clicking for a couple of seasons now. You touched on Daniel Jones situation. Right, there we go. And obviously Daniel Jones, after 6 years, it's over. He's been benched. And he's not just been benched. He's now the third string quarterback. Obviously, Tommy DeVito is coming into the fold. let's give this man some respect, okay? Before we go on to talk about anything else, let's give Daniel Jones some respect.
Yeah.
6 years, he's been battered and bruised behind a bad offensive line.
Mhm.
He's come back from multiple season-ending injuries. He's come back the next season, and he's in one of the most difficult media areas in the NFL.
Mhm.
Everyone's been telling him that he's not good enough to play as a quarterback in the NFL, and he's gone, do you know what? I'm probably not, but I'm going to put the team on my back every single week and try and win, okay? So you have to give him respect for that. On the field, though, he just hasn't been good enough.
Oh.
Obviously, paying him so much money and then not paying Saquon Barkley, it was going to go very, very much downhill from that very, very quickly. Also, benching him at the time that they have, saving them $23 million in the long run. So maybe there's something there, kind of, if you talk about the off-field stuff. But Tommy DeVito, at the back in the last season, he showed that he was good enough to be a quarterback in the league. He went 3-1 as a starter. He didn't throw a pick in his 4 games, and he threw for 225 yards per game. That's better than Daniel Jones. That's good enough to be a quarterback, especially for the Giants, where they've been screaming for a bit of quarterback play. And also, mate, you mentioned the little dab hand, the Italian man.
Absolutely love it, honestly.
He absolutely just kind of re-incentivized everything that it means to be a quarterback in New York. He made the team absolutely fall in love with him. He made the city fall in love with him. He just absolutely rejuvenated what it's like to be a New York football fan. Okay, and that's the first time that's happened since Eli Manning's. So I think obviously the games that they've got left, they've got Tampa, Dallas, Baltimore, Atlanta, Indy, and Philly. Okay, I'm looking at Dallas and Indy and thinking those are 2 very, very easily winnable games. You're then looking at the kind of Tampa, Baltimore, Atlanta, and Philly. Maybe you can get 2 wins out of them, and then you're looking like you're in a really, really good spot. He plays you out of a draft pick to get a quarterback. I can see Tommy DeVito leading this team for a couple more seasons, and especially leading them into next year, mate.
I mean, I'm going to just say one thing, which I think it might have manifested all this. About a month ago, I was very bored, and I was sat on Madden, and I thought, you know what, I really want to rebuild a franchise. So who did I pick? Could have picked anyone. I start with the Panthers, but Bryce Young is too shit to be trying to rebuild that franchise with. And so I went to New York. I didn't play with Daniel Jones. I had to find a new roster just to get Tommy DeVito to be my starting quarterback. Bro, I honestly love that kid. He's going to be so, so good. I've seen reports that the Bowl is pretty much playing for his job. No better time to bring in that absolute beauty of a man. He's so funny. And I just think it's going to be so, so good with the players and how that offense has performed at times. Malik Neighbors has obviously been unbelievable. I just think that this is probably the right time. Give everybody a chance. If it works, it works. And if it doesn't, you go again next season. And hopefully that is the story for the New York Giants, because it's looking pretty grim to say otherwise. Now, overall, mate, any final thoughts on week 11 of the NFL?
Big quarterbacks, big time moments, putting the teams in the back. Josh Allen was the MVP of the week for me. A lot of stories have been told, and a lot of stories will be continued to be told. But what a week, what a league, what a man, Joshua Allen.
Joshua Allen, the man who everybody loves, who Haley Steinfeld would have had a very, very good night with, and who is definitely making us a little bit jealous, to say the very, very least. I'm very impressed that we managed to gloss over the fact that both our teams got spunked, pumped, and dumped this week.
Don't worry, it's coming. It's coming, boy. Don't worry. Stay tuned.
If you want to stick around and watch and see how we react to the fact that the Cowboys and the Niners lost this week, well, you know what you got to do. You got to stick around. You got to make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. Because I tell you what, there's some pent-out aggression currently residing within me, and it's begging to come out. So please make sure to keep an eye on our channel, and please make sure to keep on coming back. Because as always, on the All Out Brits podcast, we keep on bringing the blitz and coming back for more. Thank you, everybody. We shall see you next week as we talk all things week 12. Enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you next time on the All Out Brits podcast.
Peace. A little longer.
It was flowing, didn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was good, that.
Can't stop the flow.
Some good TikTok